Hi everyone, my name's Erin Vance from Engen. Welcome to the EngenCon. I'm going to be reading from my book Exposure, which is coming out October 23rd. I'm reading the meeting between the two main characters, Josh and Adrian, who are weirdly enough meeting in the cemetery because they are my favorite places to walk because that's where you get all the cool names. So Josh followed the path. There was no reason not to. There were graves on either side of the path. Some tall tombstones with names like Franklin Bauer and Elizabeth Mackenzie, wife of Jonathan. Some small ones with decorations like May Fitzgerald, may you fly with angels. Paul Cruez, gone too soon. And some with names so faded he couldn't read them without leaving the path. While Josh wasn't the kind of person who was afraid of cemeteries, after all, everyone in them was either dead or grieving, he still didn't feel like tromping around in the dark. The very idea of it made him uncomfortable. Like when someone says something that they obviously expect you to laugh at, but you don't think is an appropriate joke, and so you stand there awkwardly, wishing you could go home. Still, although there were lights off the street nearby, the soft crescent moonlight, and the beam of his flashlight, although there were the soft thuds of his boots against the stone path, the huffs of his breath, and the soft zoom of cars, although there was the smell of dying grass and far-off gasoline, Josh didn't feel inspired. He mostly felt alone. He came to a stop right where the path forked off in two different directions, one to the right, one to the left. Oh boy, he said aloud, a crossroads, a decision. Should I flip a coin? He shone the flashlight's beam down to the right, back towards the road. Then he shone it to the left, where he saw a string of trees all stretching their skinny arms towards the sky. He blinked and said, well, at least that's aesthetically pleasing, right? He turned that way and let the light dance off the tombstones on the right and the trees on the left. Then he swung his flashlight back because there was someone kneeling at a grave 20 feet away. It wasn't like he had night vision, so all he could see was a figure in dark clothes with dark hair, reaching out with a hand to touch a tombstone. Josh paused, suddenly feeling super awkward because, hell, there really was someone who didn't get off work until 8 o'clock and came here to visit his dead wife's grave on their anniversary. What was he supposed to do now? You do know that light is shining right in my eyes, right? A deep male voice said. Then the figure turned his head to face Josh. And yes, the light did shine right in his eyes. Shoot, Josh blurted, dropping the light down a foot so it shone on the man's lower back. I mean, hell or oops? The man was still looking at him, but with the light where it was, Josh couldn't really read his facial expressions. Did you need something? The man said. He put one hand on his knee and used it to push himself up on his feet. He pulled his hands into his coat pockets, and only then did Josh dare to raise the light up to the man's chest. You mean besides inspiration? Josh answered, and then made a face at himself. Inspiration, the man echoed, in a graveyard? I like creepy things, Josh said with a shrug. He took a step forward, and when the man didn't move, made another one, and then a third. And, you know, desperation makes a man do crazy, stupid things, right? As he neared, he could read the man's expression, and right now his eyebrows were raised above a deep frown. I don't think you have any idea what real desperation is, he said. Josh swung the flashlight around in a loose circle, getting a better look at the man's face and the long stretch of the cemetery behind him. The man was younger than Josh originally thought, only about Josh's own age. He had pale skin, the kind that typically came out of winter, straight, dark hair trimmed neatly around his ears and the curve of his jaw, a sharp chin, and a thin, pointy nose. Josh shrugged a shoulder, returning the light to the center of the man's chest. What is real? He joked, grinning. When the man didn't return his grin, Josh let the admittedly slightly manic, because come on, no one ever actually expects to meet someone in a cemetery, grin slip off his face. He tilted his head and narrowed his eyes at the man for a moment before shrugging that same shoulder again. But honestly, I don't think that's really fair. Is it my fault that my life has been so secure that my definition of desperation is rather tame compared to others? What is real but what you decide for yourself based on your own experiences? The man blinked and his frown lessened a fraction. He lifted his chin and said, and I suppose you want me to feel sorry for you and your tame life? No, Josh swung the flashlight again. The man wasn't wearing a hat, the moron. I want you to feel sorry for me because I have no inspiration for my final photography project. Duh, he answered, because sometimes he was kind of an asshole. The man scoffed and looked away towards the grave again. I think I'll pass, he said dryly. Josh rolled his eyes and shone the light on the grave. It illuminated the words Irene Byrne, 1929 to 2004. There was a little dove between her names and her dates. Josh blinked at them and said, "I guess that's not your dead wife, huh?" There was silence, but Josh really wasn't expecting a response to that. So instead he turned in a circle, letting the flashlight shine around the cemetery. "So, what you doing here?" "Walking," the man said, his voice curt. Josh turned back to face him, and the man was standing tall and taut, his shoulders pulled back and face tense. "Is that a problem?" Josh blinked and said, "Well, it's kind of creepy, but whatever floats your boat, dude." The man relaxed slightly, but his frown stayed. "Right. Well, if you'll excuse me." And he passed by Josh, heading back the way he had come. As he passed, his shoulder brushed Josh's, and a shiver went down Josh's arm, making the flashlight beam waver slightly. Josh turned, letting the light shine on the man's back as he walked rather briskly down the path. He tilted his head to one side as he watched and pursed his lips. "Creepy," he repeated. But he lowered the beam towards the path, creating a long shadow before the man. He waited until the man turned right, back down to the main path, before he turned back to the grave. "Well, Irene, I don't know about you, but that was weird," he said. He placed the center of the beam right on the dove, and for the first time in weeks, the camera felt like a part of him again. Kind of inspirational, though. Ta-da! So yeah, please buy my book if you're interested. It sounds better when I'm not reading it and stumbling over my words, I promise. Thanks. Bye.